Have you heard the voice of the LGBTQ plus community in the cannabis industry? Laganja Estranja is a passionate choreographer, musical artist, cannabis advocate, and LGBTQ plus icon. As a trans person, she has been on a process of self-discovery through her artistic expressions and passions. For Laganja, now is the time to help others by advocating for cannabis and trans rights.
Thank you. All right, so let me just begin by saying it is an absolute pleasure to meet you. I've been following you ever since you came on to RuPaul, and I'm just a huge fan. We're all pretty excited to have you here. Now, tell us a little bit more. What are you up to currently? What have you been up to ever since you left RuPaul and the amazing comeback for the lip sync assassin in All Stars? What have you been up to?
Well, I have been traveling as much as I can, during the pandemic as safely as I can.
Right.
I just hit 100 performances of physical, the routine that I performed on All Stars. So that was a pretty big, amazing accomplishment. I was in Lima, Peru, when I hit my big 100. And yeah, I've just been working on music, a new TV show, movies. I mean, all kinds of things. I am a Capricorn, so I'm always trying to be at work and be moving forward.
Oh, that's amazing. Tell us a little bit more about, we know that you are a huge representative for cannabis. You're going to be our centerfold for our June edition of Pride Month. So tell us a little bit more about your activism. What has your relationship with cannabis? When did it begin?
So I began smoking cannabis in high school. I was a senior, and it was while I was working on a dance piece that actually ended up being nominated, and it's how I became a presidential scholar in the arts. So I always say, like, my first experience with cannabis was medicinal because it was used as a way for me to be creative as a choreographer. And so from a very early, point on, I really fell in love with the plant. And, growing up in Texas, I was always told it was a very bad thing. So when I discovered that I'd been lied to and that it, in fact, was a very good thing, I decided that I wanted to spread that message with my platform as a drag queen. Again, being from Texas, I feel like queens in general, whether they be drag queens, beauty queens, like pageant queens, that they have a platform to stand on that's bigger than them, that means something to them. And I felt like cannabis was that platform because, again, it was such a helpful thing in my life, not only as an artist creatively, but also as a person, who suffers from mental health and depression and, you know, anxiety. Cannabis really, began to help me. So again, that's why I chose it as my message. And as far as being an activist, it's something that I'm still working on today. I think as an activist, you're always constantly, hopefully at least, growing and learning and figuring out how to be, a better voice for the community. And, with cannabis, I really didn't know anything. Again, I came from Texas. So moving to California and being introduced to dispensaries and bud tenders and learning the difference between THC and CBD and how terpenes work and, just the whole sort of cannabis profile, I was then able to be a better activist because I actually understood the plant. So I always say to people, to be a good activist, you have to learn and listen, and then you have to constantly grow, because things are always evolving, everything's changing so quickly these days. So I
Yeah.
think it's super important to, stay up and stay well read and well diverse on, the subjects that you promote and that you talk about. I'll be honest, recently becoming a trans, advocate now, there's been a lot of pressure since I've come out for me to, be this trans activist. And it's like, well, hey, I just joined the community. Like, can I be trans first? Can I learn, about the community before I'm supposed to represent everyone? And I think I was lucky in the way that cannabis sort of does have this recreational side. So when I came into the landscape as an entertainer, it was much more digestible, if that makes sense, because entertainment is woven in with cannabis, which is why it's always been the perfect crossover for me. But being trans, I'm just learning. There's so much I have to learn yet. And so oftentimes when I'm asked to speak on trans issues, I always preface it with saying, I just came out in June. So let's remember that, because when I first started as a cannabis activist, I wasn't as elegant speaking, or you know what I mean? I didn't know so much about the plant. So it's just been a journey, and I'm learning, like I said, every day how to be a better activist, both in cannabis and as a trans person.
That is amazing. It is very well known. You have a big platform, and well, you were one of the first drag queens to ever openly speak about cannabis, especially on the show and in general. Now, what has your experience been like as a drag queen in the cannabis world? Have you encountered censorship during the show or during the rest of your performances or even on social media?
Yes, I think, censorship when it comes to cannabis is a huge topic, and something that I know personally, my friends and I are really passionate about. I'll be honest, I'm very lucky when it comes to Instagram. I was verified where, pretty early on in my career. And I really do believe, because of that blue check, I don't face a lot of what my friends and my other influencer friends face, because I have that symbol, that marker, that thing that Instagram has decided means, like, okay, you're legitimately this person, and unless you like basically get butt ass naked, we're not going to delete you. Whereas my friends in cannabis, they can post, the most simplest post, but they're just holding a joint or smoking in a video, and their whole Instagram account gets deleted. So again, I recognize that I have a lot of privilege, which is why I always try to promote cannabis, on platforms such as Instagram, because I somehow am able to get away with it. And I want to reach people with this message. But as far as being a drag queen in the cannabis community goes, it's been up and down. Some days I'm like, oh, we're really changing. And then 2 days later, I'm like, no, we're not. There's still a lot more work to do. But yeah, I've definitely faced, homophobia. I'll be honest, since coming out as trans, I really haven't stepped into the cannabis landscape because I am fearful. So I guess that says a lot about the experience I had as a drag queen. I think for me, it's like my experience was already bad as a drag queen. So now I feel like as a trans person, it's going to be even worse. Like they're not going to understand me, but a lot of that's in my head. And I know, I got to get over that, and face my fear and get back into the cannabis landscape, which is why I'm so grateful that you're writing about me, because it is something that I am very passionate about, but it hasn't been easy. There definitely have been moments throughout my career where I have felt, like people in the cannabis industry have turned their back on me or have used my platform and then not paid me. That's happened quite often a lot too. So, nobody's perfect, but I definitely think the cannabis industry overall, you know, has a lot more work to do when it comes to being not xenophobic, being open to others and other ideas.
Well, that's really something we talk about a lot in our magazine, especially when we talk about the United States. Minorities are heavily impacted when it comes to laws and regulations, especially the racist aspect of it. Now, the another minority would be the LGBTQ ANI, would be someone that would be heavily impacted as well. Do you feel there are safe spaces in the cannabis industry for the queer community? There seems to be just right now it seems to be only beginning that people in the queer community have a platform to talk about cannabis. Do you feel there's a safe space? Do you feel there's a future for representation as well for the queer community within the cannabis industry?
Well, I'm a very see the glass half full kind of gal. So yes, I see hope. I see, change. I see prospect. I definitely, believe that we are moving in a forward direction. It may be at a extremely slow pace, but we are moving forward. And I do think, more safe spaces are being created every single day. I think we're underrepresented, absolutely. You know, the fact that I'm one of the biggest queer cannabis influencers there is sometimes blows my mind, because I'm just like, there's so many other queer
You might say the
cannabis.
biggest.
Say what?
You are the biggest.
Well, thank you. You said that, not me. But what I will say is it just, it does shock me all the time that my other queer friends in cannabis don't have a bigger platform and aren't as amplified. But ultimately, the cannabis community at large is not amplified. So that's, I always think it's so wild when minorities then decide to picket themselves. Like, for instance, as someone who lived as a gay man for many years in my life, the bears, the twinks, the lesbians, it was all so divided. And it's like, I thought the whole point of, for me at least, being queer and being a cannabis smoker was one love. We're here for everyone. We love everyone. It doesn't matter your differences. You can believe whatever you want as long as you respect my beliefs. And, I think that sort of ideology, we see it in both the queer community and the cannabis community. And that's always, I guess, sort of been another part of my mission, is to, live out loud and live authentically so that I can inspire others to do the same.
That is amazing. Now, now you've talked about your mission, your brand, which is Laganja. How did that name came about? Are you planning on building a brand onto that name? Are you planning, what are the plans for the future for Laganja, and how did it begin?
Yeah, well, it began there's a lot of questions you asked in that. So the first one is, how did the name come about? And the
Yes,
name,
sorry.
that's okay. The name came about in college. I had a drag queen friend by the name of Marquita Velveeta, and I loved the way his name rhymed, and I loved that it was a pun for his real name, which was Marcus. So I feel like I used those principles with my name. Estranja comes from étranger, which is a term used in the ballroom community. Laganja is LA's ganja. So, who knows? I smoked a lot of cannabis. It's hard to pinpoint exactly how that name was created, but something around those lines for sure. Then you asked, what was the second question?
Since you've built the brand Laganja, are you planning on building forward within the cannabis
Right.
industry with that brand?
So as far as my brand goes, right now I'm really focused on fashion and lifestyle. I've been, launching pretty much a new collection almost every month on my website since December of 2020, was it? Gosh, I think I've been doing it almost a year now. Wow. And anyways, long story short, I want to grow the brand into cannabis, yes, but I've not had very much success with this. I have some straight friends in the cannabis industry who have their own brand, but again, it's not like everyone just has their own brand out there. We think that nowadays because celebrities like Justin Bieber and Seth Rogen are jumping in the game. But ultimately, like, having a brand is a lot of work and it takes a lot of money. So realistically for myself, like I said, am more focused on my lifestyle brand, my music, my art, things that I can control. Because cannabis, I've just learned, no matter how much I learn, no matter how many people I meet, you need millions of dollars and you need a lot of connections. And at least here in Los Angeles, it's a tough game to get into, especially for someone who is trans and works as a drag queen. But I do have hope that one day maybe I'll meet an investor, or maybe I will succeed in my, artistic endeavors so that I'll be able to afford it myself, because I would love to have my own dispensary run by drag queens who perform, every hour on the hour, and all the streams are named after, all my sisters, and money goes back to charity. And I mean, totally, I have the dream. It's there. It's just so far not been as successful as other parts of my career, which is why those are the ones I focus on, obviously, right? A girl's got to eat.
Yes, and you're doing an amazing job. Just let me tell you that. Now,
Thanks.
I know we don't have a lot of time, so just the last couple questions. Now, what are your views on the progress on regulations that are going on in the United States on medicinal use, on recreational use? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I guess my one thought would be I really wish we would push medicinal across state lines so that we could get it recognized federally. I think sometimes going to recreational, negates the whole point of the fact that this is medicine and it needs to be treated as such. And yes, there are recreational benefits, but ultimately, this is a medicine that people need to have safe access to. So I would just like to see more states become medical and really take it serious, as opposed to pushing for recreational to make money and so big businesses can, yet again win.
That's amazing. Now, have you found the cannabis topic to be a bonding topic now that you've traveled all over the world? Has this been something that you can relate to people all over the world?
Yes, everybody smokes weed.
Well, you're telling us, right? Now,
Absolutely.
and just to finish this, and it's been an amazing experience, just at least to get to hear you. Do you have anything to say for our readers during Pride Month about your experience or what the future can hold?
Well, I guess what I always like to say is to live out loud and live proud. I have been giving, people talks for a very long time at the ends of my shows about living their authentic truth. And, in a way, I was going home and lying to myself and not living by what I said. And coming out as trans last Pride was very difficult for me. But ultimately, it has set me free and it has allowed me to discover myself at such a different place in life than I ever thought I could be. And so, what I want readers to know is that they can be anything they want to be, as cheesy as that sounds, as long as they love themselves and they accept, what their truth is. And sometimes, yes, the truth is hard and sometimes it's scary. But ultimately, accepting your truth and just being who you are, whether that's a boy who wears dresses, whether that's, a trans woman who wears pants, I mean, whatever the gender norms you want to break, you want to step out of, do it. Don't be afraid. Trust your instincts and know that you are beautiful just as you are.
That was incredibly amazing. Thank you, Laganja. Let me just say, you are doing incredible. Your journey has been incredible, and you have a ton of admirers in the Latin American community. We'd love to see you in Bogota, here in Colombia, all of Latin
I
America. We're
know.
just dying to see you.
I messaged Oh My Drag and I was like, you need to bring me back.
I just saw Detox last week,
Oh, good.
and we'd love to have you again. You have a huge fan base here. We really admire everything you're doing. Keep up the good work. Don't forget the cannabis industry. You're a great advocate, and thank you so much for the space you opened us for here today. You were meant to slay, and keep up the good work.
Oh, thank you all so much. I really do appreciate it. My heart belongs to Latin America 100%. So hopefully I will get to see you all very soon.